Hi, welcome to Oh, the People You'll Meet. My name is Stephanie Richardson, and I am so glad you have joined us. So I started this podcast because I meet people in the most random places, whether it's coffee shops, Chick-fil-A, bookstores, the kids' functions, church, wherever. I get to meet the coolest people, and what I learn from them, and when I hear their story, I'm like so inspired because I feel closer to God because of their story. Their story reminds me that I'm not alone. He's present. He's here every day, every second of our lives. And I just get so encouraged by their stories. And because I'm so encouraged by their stories, I think you'll be just as inspired by their stories. So that's why we're here. So today we have Amy Peteet as our guest. And I always start with how I met you. And so I met you because you're my sister-in-law.
Yeah, you married my brother, yes.
I married your brother. Yeah. And so you were grateful that your brother finally got married since he was the last of the three of you to get married.
Yes, definitely.
And he was 30 when he got married. 31, I think.
31.
So y'all were kind of worried. And then he married me. He was like 7 years younger. So then you're really worried.
Then we were really worried, yes. We were kind of tired of him still parenting us. So it was a good thing for him to give him somebody else.
Me. That's not cool.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, Amy, I want to kind of go back a little bit about kind of your growing up and kind of your story. And so, yeah, because I'm so excited about people hearing your story.
Okay. Well, I was born actually in Atlanta. Moved here when I was like in third grade, so I consider myself a Texan.
Yeah,
pretty
got
much
here as fast
raised
as you
here.
can.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Grew up single mom. My parents got divorced when I was young. Single mom till I was about in sixth grade. Then she remarried pops. It really had a normal childhood. Just went through high school, did athletics, was involved in everything. Went to college at University of North Texas, joined a sorority there. Was just active, did as much as I can socially.
Yeah.
It was just easy. I say it was easy. My mom was single, so it wasn't easy.
Right.
But I look back on it, and the Lord's hand was just all over my childhood. My mom's a big, big prayer.
Yeah.
And in the time, I didn't realize the impact that was having on my life and how he was protecting us and guiding us. But now I can look back and think, he really, he had his hand all over us.
Yeah. Your mom, for those that don't know, she would get up every morning at 4:30 in the morning to pray with her best friend.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can't not, you see the hand of God because of that, because of her obedience. Like, I see that in my life and Jeffrey's life and Toby and your life and our marriages, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like this should not be, it's not very typical for a mom to raise in a single situation, single woman to raise 3 kids on her own, to have them be Christ followers,
Right.
And it's not typical. And so it just shows like the hand of prayer. And so our senior moms are getting together and we're doing Power of a Praying Parent. We were talking about this yesterday, about how like it's so evident that, how important prayer is. And I was sharing with them, I'm like, I see the fruit of that prayer, and I experience it, and I believe our kids are experiencing that prayer. And so let's talk about our kids. So you met Kyle.
Met Kyle right after I graduated. I was doing student teaching, and I met Kyle out dancing one night. We were country dancing.
But he's not a big country dancer.
He cannot dance. He cannot keep a beat.
So what was he doing there that night?
He was there with his friends, and I had a broken finger, so I couldn't dance. And so really, even the Lord was working then. If I hadn't had a broken finger, I'd have never met him.
Yeah. So you met him that night, and y'all were married, a couple years later?
Oh, no. We dated about 9 months before we got engaged.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
we just knew.
Yeah.
And then we were married 5 months after we got engaged because we didn't want a long engagement.
And so you got married, and you were teaching.
And we lived in Valley Ranch for about a year, and then we bought a house in Denton. And I'm not sure why we bought a house in Denton.
I know. I wondered that, too, when Jeffrey and I were dating. I'm like, they live really far. Like, they live really, really far.
Both
and now we live that far.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot. You're the reason.
we were both working in Irving. And we moved out to Denton. I have no clue.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Well, his parents were still living in Denton, and I don't know. It was
Yeah.
like cheaper. I don't know.
Well, no,
Probably.
honestly, that kind of goes a little further down in my story, but I have Sawyer is my oldest son. He's 22 now, but he was diagnosed with autism when he was 22 months old. And at the time, University of North Texas had an autism project, and there was a huge long waiting list. They do applied behavior analysis there, ABA. And there was a huge long waiting list to get in this program. And so I put our name on the list, hoping in a couple of years he would get on it. And within 3 weeks, they called me because they go by proximity to the school.
Really?
And so if we had been living in Irving or in Flower Mound, it might have taken us years to start his therapy. But because we were 10 minutes up the road,
Right.
he was in.
Okay, well, now I'm not so bitter
So-
that we live out here.
Now you know why.
Okay, let's go back. So, you have Sawyer, and when did you know that things weren't typical for him?
He's different because he also has low muscle tone and fine motor delays and large motor delays, and so really from the first, Mom knew. You could tell she would question me a lot, but Mom knew. But my doctor, I was going to all my checkups with him, and my doctor was saying, "Don't worry, it's okay. All kids develop, differently, so don't stress about it." And so the doctor's like, God, of course they know. And so I just decided I would listen to them. It put me in a happier place,
Right. Than thinking something was going on.
And so at his 18th month checkup, the doctor finally, at this point, he still was not standing. He was, we call it crawling. He would literally scoot on his back. He found his way to move. He couldn't crawl, no language yet. And so at that point, the doctor finally said, okay, something's up. We need to send you to a neurologist. And one neurologist led to the next neurologist, and I can't tell you the amount of things they tested him for, because they didn't know. Because he had so many different issues, they couldn't really figure out what was going on with him. And it got to the point that I stopped looking on the internet as to what it was they were testing for, because I didn't want to know unless he had it, because I would stress and worry and be anxious. And the Lord was like, today, you just take care of Sawyer today, and you don't worry about things. And so finally, our fifth doctor we went to, it was a pediatric, developmental pediatric. Who knew they even had
that was a thing.
Yeah. And literally, we walked in the door, and within 10 minutes, he was like, he's autistic. Obviously, how could you not know? So that was 22 months old. We got his diagnosis, and I remember we were actually on our way out to Kyle's farm. They have a house out in East Texas, to be with his family, and I remember all the way out there. I mean, it's like the Lord had just, I hate to say he gave us ignorance, but he blocked out anything but just today for us. We didn't talk about what it was going to mean for his future. We didn't talk, at that point, all we knew of autism was Rain Man. That movie.
Right, that's right.
And,
because it wasn't like the autism awareness.
No,
that
nobody else had autism back then. So, we had a great weekend. We went and told his parents that weekend. His parents were devastated. And we were like, no, it's all right. It's like the Lord just revealed just what we could handle at that moment.
Right.
And over the next couple weeks, there's no how-to book. There's no what you do next. You just kind of have to figure it out yourself. And I am not good at that, because I really like to stay in my happy place. There are flowers there, and it's pretty.
So beautiful. Yeah.
So over the next couple weeks, we just kind of started doing some research, and I don't even know who told us about the Autism Project at North Texas, but it truly was an amazing answer to prayer that I didn't even know to pray. I did not know that intervention before the age of 5 was huge, and I didn't know all these things, and they just jumped on it. We started doing 40 hours of in-home therapy a week. A therapist would come to our house for 2 hours at a time. And so we would have 2 therapists come in the morning, and then I'd feed him lunch and he would nap, and then we'd have a therapist come in the afternoon. It was a crazy
And
time.
you had
And I
another
had Cheney at that point,
right?
who was 3 years younger than Sawyer.
And so you had keeping her active, busy and stuff, and then you also had Sawyer with all his therapy.
Yeah, it was
40
crazy.
hours
and I'm not sure who the Lord was doing more work on, Sawyer or me, because being at home all day, every day, it was hard. I mean, really, the Lord brought me back to the point that it was just Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, like, I kept thinking, I need out. And he's like, no, you need me. I need a social life. Nope. You just need me.
Yeah.
I'm like, and we couldn't afford it. Kyle was just starting in his career, and we could not, we had to pay all of these therapies. It wasn't like it was free.
Right.
We paid for all these therapies, and Kyle, he didn't make that kind of money back then. Nobody did.
Right.
And I would, start crying and say, okay, we need to figure out a budget so that I know that at the end of the month we can pay for this. And every time he would stop me and say, baby, we can't, because on paper, it does not work. Like, the money is not, I don't know how, just each month the Lord would supply just what we needed. Not a cent over, but not a cent under. It was always, he would, some other therapy would come along, a speech therapist that we really wanted to try. And it just so happened the next week, Kyle would get a bump in salary. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we can afford this therapy now. And then when Sawyer would grow out of the therapist, and I'm like, oh, we have a little extra money to breathe. He would change jobs and the money would go down. I can track my life by financially, the Lord hitting every point we needed.
Right.
I really, finances have never been a struggle with me because I have such a firm foundation, and he will meet the need. Right. He's not going to give you everything that makes you happy,
right?
But he will meet every need. It's amazing, and he still does it,
right?
Still,
even now.
Mm-hmm.
So he ended up going into school, like after he had, because he had the 0 to 5, and then he goes to kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And is he included in kindergarten at that point?
He went to transition. He was in transition first, which is a public education. It's right before kindergarten. And then he went into kindergarten. And there again, they were like, they're trying to take all kids out of special ed. They want them in inclusion in classes, which, I think needs to be on an individual basis. Right. I think there are times Sawyer totally benefited from being in the class, but I think I think he would have learned more if there were times that they had pulled him out of class, and so he wasn't a distraction to those kids. It was. So he was included. He was in the classroom. He's always been in a classroom, but once again, God was so faithful, and we were given a shadow for him. So there was literally somebody just for Sawyer in the classroom. So everybody else thought he was, just actually in kindergarten. They thought he spoke another language because his speech was still delayed. Yes. So they thought he was the smartest kid in class. He was bilingual. Thank you. Yes, he was. But he had a shadow with him, and he kept that shadow all through school. It was amazing.
It's so interesting because, my kids, we've talked about this before, is that the boys didn't know any different because they're all the same age, basically, right? Sawyer's he's a little bit older than Will. Mm-hmm.
He's 22.
So Will's 20. So it's like 2 years difference. And so, at 2.5, I think. And so, they are all together playing all the time, not knowing anything's different with Sawyer, right? Until about the time they were in, I would say, like 2nd and 4th grade or somewhere around there. And I remember maybe first, they were like young elementary. Right. And they were like, something's up. And it was more, I think it was more like behavioral. They were like, why does he do that? It was starting to like they didn't know something was different about him, and so they were like, why is he doing that? Like,
because Sawyer's just Sawyer.
It was starting to annoy them because they didn't understand that that's just the way he is, you know. Yeah. And so you gave us a book, and I can't find that book, but you gave us a book, and it said something. My friend has autism, or something, I think is what it's called, and it was just this flip book that just shared like, this is how my friend is different than you. My friend with autism is a little bit different than us, and this is how we you know, how he thinks and how he works. And after that, the boys were like, I mean, it was like night and day the way that they treated him. And I thought that was so important. And actually, when Jake was in 5th grade, he was in a class that had inclusion, but they never shared like, hey, you know, these kids have autism, right, and so we need to have extra. This is what autism is. This is how their brain works. This is how they may be a little bit different, but let's show compassion, and this is why. And they didn't do that. They didn't. And I went into the teacher, and I'm like, hey, I think you need to read a book to them or share with them about autism. And she said, no, they should just treat everyone kindly. And I was like, yes, in a perfect world, yes, that is true.
Right.
But when you understand what someone's going through, you have more compassion. You know, yes, we should have compassion and go, oh, someone may be going through a hard time. That's why they're acting this way. But I think we do everyone a disservice by not sharing like, hey, they have, you know, because we're like, we don't want to label, but sometimes that label helps.
Oh my goodness, I absolutely agree. Yes, and I think they need an extra measure of grace.
Right.
You know, I absolutely agree.
And so that is, but my boys have, you know, through Sawyer, and they have had, you know, so much more compassion, knowing, you know, the way he is, and so it's.
I truly believe that Sawyer has a purpose. You know, but I truly believe that what he has done in my life and in Kyle's life and the girls' life and your boys and our extended family, I think we would all be so different without him. Oh, you know what I mean? Sure. I just think the Lord has used him in so many ways.
He has, for sure. He's such an amazing joy. And we have so much fun, and he's so dang smart. Like, he comes up with these, he comes up with the, I always just, like, because his speech is still delayed.
Yes, yeah.
And so when he says things, I'm like, did he just say what I think he said? No. I mean, his wit is
everything he learns, he memorizes. Like, he can't read, you know, so he memorizes more phrases than words, and so he has learned to put those phrases into use.
But they're always spot on.
They are always.
That's what's so weird.
I know.
Because I'm like, how does he know that that's the context that you use that phrase? Like, it is hilarious, and it's always like it's. That, you know,
really hard to get mad at him sometimes.
You're like, that was so funny, but you're still in trouble.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. So I think one of the, you know, I'm sure you were still trying to find different therapies and different ways, you know, as he was growing older, and the school provided a lot of that.
Yes.
So 2 years ago, Sawyer aged out of the system. So once you're 20.
After your 21st birthday.
Okay.
You're aged out of the system. So he turned 21, and then that summer, he's out of Denton ISD. Yes.
And it's so funny because, you know, you think, okay, well, you know, you're so good at being like today, you know, but then today became tomorrow, and it was like, oh gosh.
Oh my gosh. And really, I thought, we'll have the summer to think about it. You know, I mean, we do a lot as a family. The girls adore Sawyer. Berkeley and Cheney adore him. They take him places and do things with him. And I thought, we'll just play this summer, and then in the fall, I'll think about it. I'm not going to think about it yet. And about 2 weeks into summer, I was like, holy cow. Like, his social skills were going down. He was bored. He was playing Xbox all day long. Right. He wanted to go do things, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we can't wait. We can't wait.
So you were starting to look at different options, and I remember you went to lunch with another family, or dinner with another family that has a special needs son, and who had aged out. So, so tell me about that conversation and what happened. Oh my gosh,
I think I aged 12 years that one night. It was the Skinners, really good friends of my brother's, and they have a special needs son. We've known them for years, but I'm just never in contact with them, and so they just kind of laid out what they had been doing, things they had done, things we probably needed to do. And really there were things that we'd probably heard along the way, but thought, oh, we can wait, or that doesn't have to happen now. And, but we went home, and really on the way home, I wished I smoked. I was just, I almost hyperventilated. You know, there's just so much when you have a special needs child. We needed to, you know, rewrite our will. We couldn't leave him anything in the will, or his, you know, his Social Security things would be impacted. I mean, it was just this huge list, and, you know, top priority was getting his rights taken away, you know, which we'd heard that we needed to do. We'd talked to a lawyer. The lawyer said, oh, don't do it. You have to, you know, we had to serve him papers. We had to take him to court and sue him for his guardianship. And we didn't, you know, the lawyer's like, you don't want to do that. And I'm like, you're right. Yeah, I don't want to do that. But then we found out, like, if he went to the doctor and needed a medical transfusion, something, and he didn't want it, he could refuse it and say no, which anything involving a needle,
you would absolutely say
yes,
no.
Would say no. Who, you know, and so we immediately, you know, the next day contacted a lawyer to start that process. I mean, there's just so much that we had no clue. Yeah, right. It was eye-opening. And really, it was one of those things, again, that I'm like, where's the book that says this next step? This is what you do. It's all by word of mouth. And you know, I laugh because you love to meet people and be around people, but really, it is people who help shape your path sometimes, you know, and who the Lord puts into your life. And I'm so thankful for the Skinners and their openness with us, and not just telling us, explaining to us what we needed to do, but also being very empathetic and, you know, this just stinks. You know, you just do it. Don't, you know, you just have to do it. Yeah. So, yeah, it was eye-opening.
Yeah. And so you started the process of terminating his rights and kind of figuring out what his long-term, you know, what it was going to be like for a long-term, you know, because you'd live in today, but you couldn't live in today any longer. No. I mean, you still live in today, but I think you also had to think about tomorrow. And so for his good, right?
Yes, definitely.
And so, you started, and you know, and as a family, I think we kind of were like, okay, how can we help? I mean, because we kind of were like, oh, he needs purpose. You know, before he had school, he got to, you know, help with the football team. He got to do different cool things at the school, but now he's home and he needs purpose in his life. You know, maybe so I think the first thing we thought, well, he just needs a job.
He needs something to do.
He needs something to do.
Yeah.
But I will never forget walking. And so we decided, well, we're going to come up with a nonprofit that just helps him find a job, you know? And then I'll never forget, like, so then we kind of started that, you know, our first, like, job project with Sire. And it was like, oh, wait, this isn't going to work. This is not going to work.
His attention span is so short.
Short, yeah.
And somebody has to stay with him and keep reminding him what he's doing every step of the way. Yeah. Yeah, it was.
And so that was like, okay. And so I'll never forget walking with you in Costa Rica, and we were talking, and I was like, what is the thing he needs the most? And you're like, he needs community, you know, and that's what he needs to find. He needs purpose, and through, like, community brings that purpose.
Right.
And so we kind of started going, okay, now how can we help with that? And so we started helping, you know, figure out. And then about that time, you learned of a cool place in Denton.
Denton. What do you know? 29 acres.
29 acres.
And once again, it's a place I'd heard about a couple of years ago.
I think I even sent you.
You did. You sent me an article when they were breaking ground over there. And you know, so I really hadn't thought about it in a while. And honestly, those places, they're amazing, but they're so expensive. So once again, I'm like, do I even want to know what I can't have? You know? Right. But I started looking into it, and I thought, we're just going to go talk to her. What, you know? And so I called 29 Acres. Morgan is the director over there of the programming, and so we went and met with her, and I'm like, you know, we'll either walk in, and, you know, my prayer was, Lord, you show us this is exactly where he needs to be, and I'm not going to worry about the financing, or you show us this isn't it. Shut the door, and we'll find something else. And Kyle and I both left there and didn't say anything, and we got in the car and we sat down, and I'm like, well, looks like we're going to need to get a little more money going. And he just laughed because it is such an amazing program. You know, most programs, they put kids in classes with therapists, but this program, they take them out in the community, which is what he needs. It keeps him excited. It keeps him motivated. He really is very nervous. He's always had one of us or his sisters or his cousins, somebody with him to do things. And his therapist with him helps him, you know, do his own ordering and, you know, all of his own figuring. They go to Kroger and they buy his lunch. He picks out his lunch and buys it, and then he goes home and cooks it. And like literally they're teaching him the skills he needs to learn to live by himself with help. He'll never live totally independently. Right. But because of 29 acres, I truly feel he's going to live way more independently than I thought he would be able to.
That's so awesome.
You know, because at home, we try to make him independent, but you know,
it's just easier sometimes to do it
oh my gosh,
him, right?
It's so much easier. It's so and faster. You know?
Yes. Yeah. And he's got sisters who dote on him.
That's right.
All the time.
And make it easy.
Yeah, make it easy on him.
So they have a 5-day-a-week program called Enrich.
Okay.
29, and he only goes 3 days a week.
Right.
You know, I think 5 for him would have been too much to start out with. I think 3 is just the right number. So
he's going there. He's improving, and he's happy.
Socially, he's getting more confident in himself. He's even just learning little skills. Even like they've even gone back to like crossing the street. You know, identifying a moving car, identifying a car that's not moving. I mean, it is. You know, ABA is. If you have a child with a social issue, ABA is just such a positive, amazing, therapeutic way to teach them, and they can teach them anything. You know, it's amazing.
That's so cool. So now our little nonprofit. Now we're going to try to raise funds.
Yes.
To help other adults with special needs and autism. I guess is more what 29 Acres specializes, right?
Yes.
Help them at a summer transition camp.
Yes.
So
they have a transition camp that's 6 weeks. It's about 6 weeks long. They'll take 8 students a week, and it's overnight. So you can stay 1 week, you can stay 2 weeks, you could stay the whole 6 weeks. You know, depending on what you want to do. You know, but there'll be therapists, and it'll be the same type of things during the day. You know, they actually last year they at 29 Acres they even took Sawyer out on the boat and had him learning surfing. You know, they take them bike riding. You know, they keep them totally active, but at the same time he has learned to wipe down tables, and he's learning to read directions, you know, off the microwave. So it's really, this summer camp's going to show us where the big holes are so we can get him ready to make that transition into housing like that.
Right. So so 29 Acres also has the housing ability, so they can actually go and be in the housing. It's in
Crossroads, and like this is it's their grand opening this summer. So we're really excited. They're going to have their goal is they'll have several houses. Right now they just have a couple that they've just completed, but they're going to have several houses. They have a lot of land. They're going to have a pool and an activity center. So they'll be able to help multiple kids.
That's awesome. Okay, so our nonprofit is Encouraged with an I, Encouraged. And
Sawyer's the president.
Sawyer is the president.
About being the president.
When we have our meetings, he's like very busy, very excited that he's the president.
Until he gets bored.
Until he gets bored, he plays his video games. Yeah. But so Encouraged is a site that they can go to. We have a Facebook page, we have Instagram, Encouraged with an I, and so people can go and learn more about what Encouraged is doing, and then there's links to 29 Acres and what 29 Acres is doing. And so our goal is to have to pay for at least, what do we say, 8 campers for a week, because it's
$2,500
for 1 week. So our goal is to have 8 campers, which would be a full week that they have. They only take 8 campers per week.
And it's not only a financial blessing to these parents, but you know, Kyle and I are so blessed because we have family around, like, and I've got my girls who love watching Sawyer, and so like, anytime we want to go somewhere, we have somebody that can love on him and watch him, and we know he is safe. But there are a lot of families who don't have that. And so
just have that respite.
Oh my goodness. I can't imagine if I had to take care of him all day, every day without a break. Like you need that mental rest,
right?
For
sure. It's that Sabbath, that whole thing that your body needs that, and you need that in your
That's
brain.
right.
And so we're hoping to provide that for 8 families.
Yes.
To have that respite while their kids, or adults, get to have fun, community,
Go
learn,
out. Yep.
And so that's super exciting. So, okay. So I finished my calls with a couple things, or my podcast with a couple things. So ask you a couple things.
Okay.
So what is something fun you're into right now?
You're not going to believe this.
What is it?
Cooking.
Really?
I really, I worked at the church all my life, all Sawyer's life, and so I really never, it's always been quick meals, with kids,
right.
You're throwing things in
Busy.
crock pots, and I never had spices and stuff, and we've started eating more Mediterranean to be heart healthy, and I actually have a whole cabinet full of spices right now, and I'm
so proud
I'm
of
actually
you.
enjoying it.
You are? Is Berkeley helping you?
She loves it.
She loves
so
much.
Oh, she does. Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Cooking. Okay, so what are you reading right now?
I love to read. I go through a book about every week or two. I'm not good at like the self-help things,
Yes.
So I'm reading Christian fiction most of the time. Right now I'm reading the cricket one, where the crickets, I can't think of the name of it. I go through them so quickly, and I'm reading them on my iPad.
I know, I love that too. I love doing it on my iPad because then I can like highlight things. I highlight things, but I read
I read to put my mind in neutral, and so I can go to sleep. But then
that's why I watch The Bachelor.
But then
to put my mind in neutral. Very spiritual. I'm very spiritual.
It's almost the same thing.
It's very similar. Yes. Well, I actually watched The Bachelor. We're trying to get Jake to watch it, so I tell him what not to date. So, but okay. So, what is your favorite parenting advice? Speaking of.
I would say in the latter years of my, through junior high and high school, I have one daughter who will share everything with me, and I have another daughter who shares nothing. And I read somewhere that to get your kids to talk to you, just go and sit by them. Don't say anything. Don't ask them a question. Just go and sit by them. And then that way, if there's something they want to talk about, they'll bring it up. And I thought, that's stupid. I'm going to end up sitting with them forever, But I tried it when Cheney was in junior high. I just went up and I laid on the floor. And I didn't say anything. I just laid on the floor. And after probably a good 2 minutes of awkward silence, she just started talking to me, and that kind of became our thing. And I'm like, oh, it really works. And so I started it with Berkeley, and literally I lay on the floor, like it's a joke now that mom's on the floor again. She wants to talk. I go in her room and I lay on the floor and I wait for a little bit, and I hope they don't listen to this because they don't know why I'm doing it. They think I just want to be with them, but I listen to your kids.
Yeah.
Don't ask questions.
So cool.
They don't answer questions.
You gotta work with Jake. I guess so. I just or Will.
Oh, no.
Will's probably the worst. Will.
No, I have a feeling there's just going to be a lot of silence.
It'd be so awkward with Will. I mean, it would just be like,
I think you're going to end up
forever
on Snapchat.
Right?
If you do that.
Gosh. Okay, so do you have a parenting do-over?
I probably wouldn't laugh at Berkeley so much. Berkeley's my youngest, and everything she does is so stinking funny. And it's not when it's outside of the house, around other people, but at home, by your third, it's fine.
It's just like whatever. I mean,
yeah, I laughed at her a lot, and I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't laugh at your third.
What is your favorite beverage?
I'm into tea right now.
Like what tea? What's your favorite tea? Like hot tea, cold tea, like
hot tea because it's warm. I'm trying to get off of coffee, so I started drinking tea. I love chai tea. I love it, but really Earl Grey, is like my favorite right now.
We need to go to another high tea.
No,
now that you're into
I
tea.
feel like such an
You're
adult.
A big girl. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
What's your favorite travel destination?
We went to Banff on our honeymoon. I loved Banff, but really I have to say Costa Rica.
That was so fun.
Yes, we don't do a lot of traveling. With Sawyer, it was just hard. In
fact, last summer was the first time he flew.
He flew. Yes, it was his first time.
First time he flew, and you were so smart to actually make him fly out of the country.
I know.
So what if he would have freaked out?
I know.
Oh
I don't know.
But he did it. He did so good.
Great.
It helped that his cousins were with him, and everybody was there.
He was so excited.
And this summer you're going to go to Florida, and he's already kind of thrown a stink about.
Yeah,
flying.
he doesn't want to fly again. Yeah.
But he did fine.
Some Benadryl
and the funny thing is that when it really couldn't have been it could have been a worse flight, but it was kind of traumatic, that flight out, because y'all ended up. So you were trying to find quick flight. We ended up not doing nonstop there, and then the flight got canceled, and then it was in the middle. We were all up in the middle of the night because our flight got canceled, and then you got separated from Kyle, and then you were with the kids going international.
And he doesn't do well when it's not a plan, so we all had to keep acting like this is totally normal. You always have your bag running through the airport. Yeah, it was crazy.
What is your favorite healthy snack or meal?
Avocado toast.
Ooh, yum. That sounds so good.
Do you have avocado toast?
Yes. When you go to Watercolor, when you go to Seaside, they have this place called the Great Southern Restaurant, and they have the best avocado toast I've ever had in my life. It's so good. But I heard First Watch, that restaurant, they have good avocado toast too.
We really even saw my whole family eats avocado toast in the morning now. We're all addicted. And we have that anything bagel seasoning. So everything bagel.
Everything bagel.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay, and then what's your favorite workout? Tennis?
Oh my gosh, I miss tennis. I honestly love jogging. I can't jog anymore, so I walk now.
Yeah.
It's bad on my knees, but I love walking.
All those days of you being a track star.
I know, I miss it.
Yes.
But really, it's just getting out and putting my headphones on and my mind in neutral, and yeah, that's my favorite. It has to be outdoors.
Yeah, that's so nice. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your
Oh,
story,
thank you.
and hopefully people will follow Encouraged with an I, Encouraged, and then also 29 Acres, and
we've got new merchandise going
and
out.
We do.
On Encouraged too.
Yeah,
Very
so
excited.
new merchandise on our website, so check it out, and thank you for joining us.